We were starting off our morning much earlier than people typically do when visiting Las Vegas, but that's because we had reservations at Red Rock Canyon. Ever since the pandemic, there are reservations required to enter the park, and you can find out all the information about getting a reservation at our website, which we have linked below in the description. Another thing that's important to know about the park is that the only way to drive through it is on a one-lane road that makes a counterclockwise loop around the park. If you're looking for a particular trailhead or viewpoint, you need to keep your eyes peeled, because if you pass it, you have to go all the way back around. One of the benefits of getting the early start like we did is that when we got to the Calico Tanks Trailhead, we had plenty of parking. Believe it or not, as big as the parking lot is, it does get packed. Even though the Calico Tanks Trail might not look super impressive on paper with its distance of 2.2 miles and an elevation gain of 406 feet, it packs in a lot of really beautiful views and some sections that some people might consider challenging. A short ways into the hike, you will be passing 3 forks. All of them are well marked and you want to stay to the right. One of those forks will take you to Turtle Head Peak. That trail has a ton of elevation, so if you find yourself climbing and climbing and climbing, you probably went the wrong way. Even with this trail being a little bit on the shorter side, you're going to want to bring more water than you think you need. This is one of the only spots on the trail where you're going to get any shade, and if you're visiting during a hotter day, it could get pretty brutal. If you go in the spring, not only will you have better temperatures, but you might even be able to see these beautiful pink flowers, which I believe are eastern redbud trees. As a small public service announcement, rock cairns like these should be used for trail marking. As much fun as they can be to make, it can actually damage the environment and it takes away from the natural beauty of the area. So if you could refrain from building them, I'm sure that hikers and the environment would thank you for it. Your four-legged friends are welcome out on the trails, but please be sure to think about the weather that you're going to be bringing them into. Hot weather means hot rocks and it could burn their feet. If you decide to bring your pet, please be sure to bring plenty of water for them, keep them on a leash, and clean up after them. As you get further into the canyon, the trail is going to become quite a bit more difficult. The rock here is very grippy, and if you mix that with some shoes with a decent amount of traction, you should be in pretty good shape. There will be a lot of scrambling through sandy washes as well as up sandstone formations. There were a couple of parts where the trail was not super defined, but you're kind of stuck between the two canyon walls, so it would be really difficult to get lost here. And even if you do manage to somehow get lost, this is one of the most popular trails in the park, so chances are if you just wait a little bit, there should be more hikers coming through to point you in the right direction. If you like to explore, there is also a lot to offer here. V spotted this little hobbit hole just off the trail, so we had to get up there and check it out. We were actually kind of surprised that this trail is as popular as it is. Some of these climbs are no joke. But that being said, it was really cool because we saw people of all ages and hiking abilities out on the trail that day. It seemed like almost everyone was having a pretty good time out on the trail, and we only saw one lady struggling to climb down one of the sandstone slabs on the way back. This is an out and back trail, so obviously you'll be coming this way on the way back. But if you need a break after some of these climbs, we highly recommend turning around and enjoying the gorgeous view of the valley below. As we hiked our way up the canyon, we came upon this tree that we had to climb over. I'm not sure if all of these grooves are caused by bugs or if this tree was struck by lightning. If you know, please let us know in the comments below. As you make your way up to the viewpoint, we highly recommend trying to memorize the route as much as you can. There are a few parts like these stairs that were extremely obvious, but then there were other parts where we were like, did we come this way on the way up? Luckily, just like our confusion right here, most of the forks do end up rejoining again at some point. Even though they all do seem to lead to the same place, there are definitely certain trails that are easier than others. If you or someone in your group is really into geology, you're probably going to want to leave some extra time for this trail. There are a lot of really cool rock formations here that were estimated to have been caused by faults about 65 million years ago. It's really neat to see the defined lines where the gray limestone and dolostone tower over the tan and red sandstone. All of them come together and combine their forces to make for one very picturesque landscape. As we continued to climb, we eventually came to a fork. If you are in a rush to get to the main viewpoint, you want to make a right here. But we went left because we weren't in a hurry and we wanted to check this trail out as much as possible. This little side trail will take you to what seems like a dead end. This is the big tank that this trail is named after, and it is usually the end of the hike. However, we recommend continuing on just a little bit further, and you'll see why in just a second. We thought that the ledge overlooking the tank looked down climbable, but just for safety's sake, we ended up wrapping back around and taking the right side of the fork down to the tank. We aren't exactly sure if there is always water here. There isn't a ton of it, so it would definitely not be a shock if it dried up during the warmer months. But the water gave us some really nice reflections of the rocks, and there were even some tiny critters living in it. If you plan on continuing on past the tank, which once again we highly recommend, you will end up climbing up this rocky slope. For some reason it looked a lot trickier than it really was, and the views from the top are definitely worth it. If you brought lunch or even a snack with you, this is an amazing place to enjoy it. Depending on how adventurous you're feeling this day and your climbing abilities, there are several different ledges that you can access here. If the higher ledges are outside of your comfort zone or abilities, worry not, because the views from the lower ledges are pretty epic as well. However, if you are visiting on a clearer day, the upper ledges will not only give you a beautiful panoramic view of the area, but you should be able to see Las Vegas off in the distance as well. As we sat on the ledge overlooking the valley below, we couldn't help but wonder if we could explore this spot even further. It looked like there was a really faint trail that dropped down into the canyon, and curiosity got the best of us, so we decided that we'd head down there and check it out. Please note that this little bonus trail is a little bit tricky, and I would almost say sketchy as well. If you aren't a skilled hiker, climber, or canyoneer, or if you don't have shoes that give you a ton of grip, I would probably skip this part. As beautiful as it is, we definitely do not want to see anybody get hurt, and there are some pretty big ledges that you could fall off of here. Luckily, V is like a tiny mountain goat, and she made it down to the bottom without hardly breaking a sweat. I think that you get much more of a panoramic type of view from the top, but it definitely had a much more immersive feel, being down amongst all of the red sandstone peaks. We spent quite a bit of time down here enjoying the view, but we still have one more hike called Icebox Canyon that we wanted to hit this day, so we decided that it was time to start heading back. And by the way, stay tuned for the Icebox Canyon video because it will be out next week. This trail is an out and back, so you'll obviously be heading back the same way that you came. The good thing is that you put in pretty much all of the work on the way in. And with the exception of a couple of tiny climbs, it's going to be pretty much downhill all the way back out. We ended up getting in a little bit of a bonus climb because we just could not leave without climbing up to that ledge that overlooked the tank. I think that it was definitely easier to climb up than it would be to down climb, so if you want to climb this, I would definitely recommend doing it in this direction. We had been turning around and enjoying the view on the way up, but the valley was still breathtaking as we made our way back down the hill. Just be sure not to get too distracted by the scenery because there is no shortage of things to trip and slip on this trail. One thing that both V and I noticed and appreciated was just how clean this trail was. Especially when you consider the fact that this is a pet-friendly trail. We did not see one poop bag or piece of trash anywhere. So well done everyone, keep up the good work. We obviously weren't done exploring on our way back because V found this little hobbit hole and she had to go in. But other than that, it was a beautiful and fairly straightforward hike back to the car. Even though we had just done the hike out, we did get a little bit turned around on our way back, but it was just a matter of looking around and we were back on the trail in no time. If you have a fear of heights, a couple of the down climbs on the way back to the car might give you a tiny bit of anxiety. We ran into a couple of people parked at the top of these climbs just trying to muster up the courage to go down. If this sounds like you, we might recommend bringing some hiking poles. This way you can reach out and brace yourself as you make your way down. Hopefully being more steady will make the down climb seem just a little bit less intimidating. After all of the climbing is done, you have a nice leisurely walk through sandy washes to get back to the car. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy adventurous hikes in the Las Vegas area, boy do we have a treat for you. Check in the upper corner of the video right now for our hike to 𝐿𝙞𝙨𝙘𝙀 Hot Springs. And if you enjoy hot spring hikes, we recommend crossing the state line and hitting the Arizona hot springs as well. Both are fun and challenging hikes and they make for one heck of an adventure. Also, if you're new, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. We have a lot of great stuff in the works and we can't wait to share it with you. For all the information about this hike as well as other awesome Nevada adventures, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.